This podcast may contain subject matter that some listeners may find disturbing or harmful. Audience discretion is advised.
Giving free one-sided therapy to the stars of reality. It's Rachel and Kacie with CBT and the TV. CBT and the TV.
All right, hello darlings, dears, and fellow queers, and welcome back to CBT in the TV. As always, I am Kacie, not Rachel.
And I am Rachel, not Kacie.
And we are finally back after a bit of a break to bring you a brand new series. We hope to cover at least season 1 over this summer. But as we all know, life brings us so many fun things to deal with. So at the very least, we're going to try and get through season 1. If we can, we'll get through the entire series. This series is episodic, so characters will only stay with us. People will only stay with us for one episode. Things to know about this show: it is a Canadian TV show, and it's pretty fun because we're going to get some episodes that take place in the Great North, and then some episodes that take place down here in the States. This TV show is called My Teenage Wedding, so we're definitely gonna be having some fun. Rachel and I will be dressing for the occasion. Rachel's wearing her fancy fascinator, and I am wearing my flower crown because we're millennials. Yeah, we're gonna take you along for summer weddings because it's wedding season, friends. That's what we're here for. This show you can definitely feel when it takes place. It is definitely early aughts. It has a little bit of that leftover Y2K feel, and then a lot of that like scene kid Kesha happy whoa baby feel. The style eludes us to this day. How on earth did we think that it's like the 80s? It's like you look back and you're like, wow, we left the house with our hair looking that way and we thought it was great. These were choices.
And it feels like it was yesterday, but it also feels like it was 20 years ago because it was.
Yeah, it feels like it was just yesterday, and then also feels like a million years ago. So get ready for a summer of time travel weddings because, things aren't weird enough in the world now. We got to add some extra weirdness. But before we jump into our very first episode titled Teen Moroccan Matrimony, I think is what the very first episode is called, because we are going to jump into Rachel and Kacie's Jar of Fun. And obviously, Rachel, the question I'm going to ask this go around is, what was something you did on our break that brought you joy?
Well, last night I did some singing, and this morning I did some singing, so I'm going to say singing.
Singing, that's fantastic. At our house, we've been watching lots of Ride the Cyclone. If you know, you know. If you don't, and you like musical theater or weird stuff, you should look it up and find out, because it is, woo boy, and real fun and amazing. We get too much further, let's also check in with our drinks and snacks, because it is important for us to hydrate and feed our bodies, and it is important for you, our dear listeners, to feed and hydrate your body. So this is your reminder to get some water, get a drink, get a snack, eat, and hydrate along with us. Rachel, what you got today?
I have leftover Dominoes because it's dinner time for me. And then I also have leftover whatever I had left of apple juice and leftover Sprite.
I have some Skippy peanut butter bites for protein, and then I have my emotional support water bottle, and I have some kombucha to drink. And I think it is finally time for us to delve into the wonderful, wacky world of My Teenage Wedding. One thing that this series offers us is one of those fantastic 2000s, early aughts overview of the episode right up front. Like, you could just watch the first 2 minutes of the episode and then move on to another show if you really didn't. They're going to tell you everything. It's a little bit like an overture. It's like a musical overture. They're going to give you a taste of all the music before they start the show. They're going to give you a taste of everything that's coming. And then if you'd rather watch Law and Order, you probably haven't missed too much of that show.
I was going to say, and I mean, the series on YouTube, the episodes are like 22 minutes. So on TV, it would have been
Yes.
30 minutes.
Yeah, this is a very short episodic series, so it's a really easy breezy watch. It has its own dedicated channel on YouTube, which I think we'll try and add into the link tree so you guys can watch along with us. This week we will be in Montreal, Quebec, so we're starting off in Canada, so we'll get to see maybe what wedding planning looks like in the Great North. Probably not too different, but still fun to see what goes on in other places. And we will be following along with 18-year-olds Victor and Sarah as they make their way to the altar. During this episode, we find out that both Victor and Sarah's parents feel that they are just way too young to be getting married. And we find out that their wedding is only 2 months away. Sarah and her mother, we also find out, have not been able to agree on lots of details for the reception. Sarah's family is Moroccan, and her mom wants to give her a traditional Moroccan wedding, but Sarah and Victor have grown up largely being part of the Canadian experience, and so they are looking to have more of a westernized wedding, which is totally fine. But so that Sarah and her mom are clashing heads about this, which makes sense. The big catchphrase for this show, like every episode, the thing you're going to hear, kind of like in every episode of 16 and Pregnant, at the end of the overview, the girl would say, but everything's about to change because I'm pregnant. In this one, the catchphrase of the show is, people say we're too young to get married, but we don't care.
We don't care.
And yeah, it is. it's worth a watch, guys. It is cheesy in the best way and full of drama. It's fantastic. It is 8 weeks to the wedding, and after the theme song, we join Victor in his car as he's on his way to pick up Sarah from her high school. And as they drive home, we get some exposition about how the two of them met. And does anyone want to guess how two teenagers could have met and be getting married? Where could they have met? It's a very short list of places when you're 18. They met at school in marching band. I do want to say for our younger listeners that there's nothing wrong with marrying someone you went to high school with. Rachel and I both know people who have done it. We know people who've done it and it's gone very well. We know people who've done it and it's gone not so well. But let me say something. Please give yourselves the opportunity to get to the point in life where you have met people you had agency in meeting before you tie the knot. You can still tie the knot to the person you knew from high school. That's fine. But if the only places you've had the opportunity to meet someone is the grocery store that your parents take you to, the school you're forced to go to legally, the church or temple that your parents take you to, you get the idea of the kind of places I'm naming. If these are the only places you've had the opportunity to meet people, and again, I'm not saying you didn't meet your soulmate there. You very well could have. Please give yourself the opportunity to have experienced multiple places that you had agency in going. The college you chose to attend. More than one job you chose to apply to. Just give yourself the opportunity. Because again, I'm not saying you didn't meet your soulmate when you were 16 or maybe even when you were 5. I'm just saying it's best to give yourself the opportunity to expand your own horizons and then make the lifelong choice. Sarah tells us that she and Victor were just buddies at first, and then they were best friends, and then eventually things started to be a little different. Victor tells us that he confessed his feelings for Sarah over Messenger, which, oh buddy, holy 2010s Batman. I'm dying to know if this was over AIM or Instagram Messenger or Facebook Messenger.
I
want to know.
Either of those existed at that point in time.
I mean, Facebook came out in like the late aughts, mid to late aughts. So you could message people on there. And Instagram came out in like 2011, which is around when this show started. So potentially not Instagram, but definitely could have been AIM or Facebook.
MSN Messenger.
It could have been MySpace.
Yes.
What if it was MySpace? What if they were in each other's top 5? Oh my God. Oh,
You would have
Sorry,
been my
I'll get
top
back on track, I
five.
promise.
You would have been in my top 5 if MySpace.
He says he just got on the chat, and Victor tells us he just got on the chat and told her everything, and that they've been together ever since. And the couple tells us that they know that they're going to be together forever, so why should they wait if they want to celebrate it right now? That they feel like getting married this young shows their seriousness and that they aren't messing around. And if that doesn't just scream, like 2D teen angst to you, I do not know what does. Like, I'm gonna show you I'm serious. And I'm like, oh, baby, you're so cute. I love you. And it's not that I don't take your relationship serious. I do. But getting married at 18 does not make me take you seriously. It makes me worry. And I felt that way about my friends that were getting married at 18. Like, I was like, this does not make me take you seriously. This makes me worry. Yeah. Now, before we get too much further, Rachel and I did want to address some things. There is a difference in culture in this episode. Again, the title of this episode online is Teenage Moroccan Matrimony, Moroccan Teen Matrimony. They address it right in the title of the episode. We're two white people, okay? We're two white girls. We cannot speak on another culture and say that without a doubt anything that happens between this mom and this daughter, this mom and this future son-in-law is cut and dry. Rachel has some points that she wants to make sure we understand moving forward in this episode.
So I did a little bit of research on Moroccan wedding traditions. We do know that typically, so Morocco, if you don't know, is this little slice of pie in Africa. On the continent of Africa, not the country, because Africa is...
It's not a country. Don't say that.
Not a country. So Morocco, like many African countries, there is almost a matriarchal tradition in a sense. And we hear it later on in the episode. The mom's like, my 18-year-old daughter, which here in America, our perception is, oh, you're 18, you're already an adult. Or, you start menstruating and, oh, you're a woman now because you can bear children. That's not necessarily the case here. And the mom is like, my daughter's now an adult because now she's married. Which is kind of what we see in the case with this mom, who very much values her culture and wants to see it honored.
Which is understandable. But I think we also hear from the daughter that she didn't really grow up. It didn't seem like surrounded by a lot of her own cultural heritage. Not that maybe her mom didn't try to expose it to her, but that there wasn't a community around her. And so a lot of this stuff that her mom is asking her to do, this is her first time experiencing it, and it feels odd to her to be doing it herself when she's never really seen it. And we can talk about that more as we get into the episode. So we are now at Victor and Sarah's apartment, and we learn that they have been living together since their engagement. And Victor and Sarah are washing the dishes, and we find out a little bit about how they ended up living together. Victor tells us that he moved out of his parents' house and in with Sarah when they got engaged, and that now he and Sarah live in this apartment, which happens to be above the business that Sarah's family owns. And I wanted to ask you, Rachel, about the romanticization and implications of teenagers living together as couples in high school, during high school, and what we think of Sarah's family giving the couple a place to live together, but also telling them that they're too young to be getting married, and what that might be communicating to this young couple.
I mean, they've done studies on couples who live together before marriage. I'm not necessarily sure that they've studied it in teens in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what her parents are thinking. I think they don't want a rebellion on their hands, or are concerned about that. And I think too, and I hear it a lot with with parents is like, if they're going to do something, I'd rather they do it
under my
under
roof.
our roof.
Yeah.
So I think some of it is probably that the supervision aspect, keeping her close.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably part of it. Is they don't want to lose her.
The pair go on to tell us about their future plans. Sarah says she wants to go to university after she finishes high school, and Victor says that he is applying for a job in law enforcement. Sarah and Victor are going over some details for the big day, and Victor tells Sarah that her mom has asked him to wear a traditional Moroccan piece of clothing for the wedding, but he doesn't really want to do that. He keeps referring to it as a Moroccan dress, and Sarah does try to like correct him. She's like, it's not a dress. But Sarah also agrees with him that that's not something that they want to do. And Sarah tells us in an interview that her mom wants to be very, very involved in their wedding, and that this has become a bit of a sore spot for everyone. She says that if her mom had it her way, they'd be doing the whole thing Moroccan, and she'd be wearing 8 different dresses, but that isn't what she wants to do. That isn't what they want to do, and that this is their wedding. It's really important that if you, as a parent, if you want your child to do something that's important for you, whether it be cultural heritage, religious heritage, or even just like a family tradition that is only specific to your family, like something that you do around the holidays with your Christmas tree, or if you want them to carry that on, you need to make it a big deal from the time they're young. Like, make it something exciting that they look forward to and they're excited to do it. Victor and Sarah also talk about how Sarah's mom wants to have Moroccan music for hours at the wedding, and the couple strongly agrees that neither of them, they don't want this. And they seem to be unable to agree about who should speak with Sarah's mom about this. Victor tells Sarah that he doesn't want the orchestra, but he doesn't want to deal with it either. That's Sarah's job. It's her mom. And Sarah says that she feels like Victor is leaving her alone in this and making her deal with it all by herself, and that he knows that her mom isn't going to take this well, and so making her do this by herself feels very isolating. And Victor replies that they can just have the orchestra then, and Sarah's mom can be the only one who enjoys it. And listen, I know that Victor is only 18, but this feels very, very close. Like we're getting very close to where weaponized incompetence lives, the way that he handles this. Like,
I also want to know, like, if he just doesn't want to stand up to her, because it seems like he struggles to stand up to his parents too.
Sarah and her mom, whose name is Raja, have a conversation about whether or not to have the orchestra at the wedding, and Sarah wants to know how long they would play for, and Raja says, 2 to 3 hours. And listen, I feel two ways about this. In party time, 2 to 3 hours can go one of two ways. They can play during like the introductions when everyone is coming in, when everyone's eating, and then for like just, the beginning of when everyone's getting out to the dance floor, and bing bang boom, 2 to 3 hours is up and done, and you're like, wow, that went by so quick. Time either moves so fast or so slow. By the time the orchestra is done playing, people are like, wow, I danced a lot or I ate a lot and now I'm really tired, and they start leaving. It will feel like the orchestra played for the whole thing, and it feels like this is only going to go one of two ways, and only one of them is going to end up happy. And
typical Moroccan weddings are 4 days at least, so 3 hours to that mom is probably nothing.
To her, that probably feels like she's giving up a lot, because they're going to do like a Western type ceremony and party, so she's not getting the days long version of a wedding, which is what is typical in her culture. So having the orchestra only play for that little bit of a time, it's probably, to her, feels like she's catering out the wazoo to her daughter's wants and needs. But to her daughter, if they only have the venue booked for 4 to 5 hours, which is what is typical for a reception, that's the majority of the time, and that's half to the majority of the time, and that feels astronomical to her. Sarah says that 2 to 3 hours is obscenely long. It's way too long, and they're going to have very few guests at their wedding who are also Moroccan, and all their guests are going to wonder, like, what the heck is going on? What is with this music? And Raja tells Sarah that her guests need to be more open, which I kind of agree with. But Sarah claps back with, open to what? Open to what you want? Because that's what this feels like. And, you know, like, now I'm kind of on both of their sides. Like, it is her wedding.
I mean, there are a lot of ways to incorporate that culture. Like, she's already being asked to wear a dress, and there's it's not like she's not incorporating the culture at all and people are not open to that. It's specifically the music that the mom's like, well, people need to be more open to the music. I also want to let our users know that a wedding is not about the parents. The wedding is about the bride and groom. So while mom is trying to compromise and incorporate Moroccan culture, I just want to remind our listeners, a wedding is not about the parents.
We then find out from Raja in an interview that she and Sarah's father are actually paying for the wedding. And she says that she's happy to pay for it, but look, if she's going to pay for it and she wants the Moroccan wedding, she's going to get the Moroccan wedding because their family is Moroccan. And again, I can kind of see why Raja feels the way she feels. Not that I think that it's a valid her feelings are valid to her, but I do not think it is a valid position to be taking. She's missing the forest for the trees. But if you're paying for the party for your 18-year-old daughter, you're going to feel like you've got to say so in it.
It's one of those yes and no.
It is now 7 weeks to the wedding, and we're headed with Sarah and her bridesmaids to do some dress shopping. And I have to say, it's definitely a little entertaining to watch them pick out the bridesmaids' dresses in kind of this whole series long, because you can even if you didn't know from the title of this series, My Teenage Wedding, and you flipped to the channel or sat down watching this episode midway through, you're going to be able to pick out that these girls are teenagers because they're picking bridesmaid dresses from a bridal shop. They're picking them from the prom section. And it is so cute.
They're only understanding their only context
Fancy.
for formal wear
Yes, it's
prom.
fancy and poofy and princess ball gown, and it's so darling to watch, but it's also like, oh, please let someone talk some sense into you, because you if you're going to go through with this, you deserve good wedding photos, and those dresses are not going to lend themselves to that. While the girls are picking out these fantastically fantastic bridesmaids dresses, we get a couple of interviews with Sarah's friends, and one of them tells us that if we're her, she would definitely not be getting married this young. It could never be her. But that she has talked to Sarah and asked her many times if she's sure, and Sarah just keeps saying yes. And that girl is the vibe. She's the moment. Another one of Sarah's friends says she doesn't think that Sarah and Victor are too young at all. She thinks they're just meant to be.
I do want to note that like they've known each other for several years at this point. And I know of couples who have met and gotten married with less than a year of getting to know each other
and
under
that's
their belt.
Also something we would say absolutely not to on this podcast. You need to know them for at least 2 to 3 years. That's how long it takes you to actually know someone.
As the grand Queen Elsa has said, you can't marry a man you just met.
Anyway, I kind of feel for the first friend who said, like, this could never be me, and I've asked my friend so many times. She just keeps saying, yep, I'm sure. Because it can feel really, really difficult to watch a friend make a life-altering decision that you're pretty sure is not the good call for them. Especially one that you think is going to impact them long-term, or you know is going to impact them long-term. And a marriage is definitely one of those things. It always feels like there's no good way to communicate those concerns without harming the relationship. And what I've learned recently is it's best to just say, like, okay, well, I'm here for you if you need anything. If you ever need anything, I'm always here.
Don't judge them for their bad decision. Just be there when it inevitably falls apart.
Back in the dress shop, Sarah tells us that in a Moroccan wedding, the first dress the bride usually wears is pink or green and not white, but that later in the evening there is a white dress, but she wants to change things up a bit, and she's going to start in the white dress because, again, she's a Canadian girlie. This is what she grew up seeing. This is what she wants to do. And while Sarah is trying dresses on, the salesperson at the dress shop asks her how old she is. And this is something we're going to see throughout this series. This is going to happen time and time again to pretty much all of the people across the gender spectrum that we're going to watch on this show get hitched, someone's going to clock them and ask them how old they are. And that's what this salesperson does. She goes, oh, how old are you? And Sarah says that she's 18. And we can tell that this shocks the person, but we can also tell that she's like, oh, I'm being filmed doing my job, must remain professional. And she's like, oh, this moment was very entertaining to me to watch that sales lady. Like, you can see she wanted to say something else, but you can also see it on her face that she's like, oh my God, I'm being filmed doing my work. I've got to put on the face and be like, oh, how very nice. You'll have such a long life together. It's now 6 weeks to the wedding, and we join Victor at his parents' house, where he tells us that his parents have asked to speak with him because they're a bit concerned about the wedding moving forward and that they think it's just too soon. Victor starts the conversation by telling them that when he initially proposed to Sarah, he had planned on having a very long engagement and not to have things move forward as quickly as they have, but that this is where they are now and he'd really like their support. And I found this to be very interesting that, you know, initially they had planned to have this very long engagement and that now they've kind of rushed to the altar. I would have loved for the show to have dug a little bit deeper into this and we could have found out why they did that. Was it just, you know, teens being teens and you get proposed to and you're like, okay, well, now we're planning the wedding. And then, oh, we booked the hall and now it's, you know, if that was what happened, or if families started asking like, okay, well, when's the wedding? Or I want to know what happened.
Some of it was the whole living together aspect of it. I have a friend who her family is Christian, so they're religious, so they're all about like don't live together before marriage, but she wanted to move out and they could move out and share an apartment, and in essence to kind of appease her parents but also to give them the middle finger, she's like, we're gonna just elope. Like, we're engaged, we're just gonna elope so that we can move out and not have that be an issue.
Victor's mom tells him that she still thinks they're way too young to be getting married and that they're going to have a lot of new responsibilities once they're married. And Victor balks at this and says that nothing's going to change because how would getting married change anything?
I wonder if production had something to do with it. I wonder if they applied to the show shortly after they got engaged and the producers were like, no, we need this to happen sooner.
See, again, interesting, and I want to know. And
we're coming with all kinds of storylines for this.
I do want to touch on Victor's response to his mom being like, how would things change when you get married? Some people, I will say, do experience very, very little change when they get married to their relationship, especially if they live together beforehand. Beach Ken and I, we saw very little change to our day-to-day relationship. But I have other friends who, when I told them this, they were like, oh, wow. Like, the day after we got married, everything felt so much more serious. And they were so surprised to hear me say this. Because I'm a very naturally anxious and high-strung person, if you can't tell. And so they were so surprised to hear me say that this just felt so relaxed and easy. So potentially not a lot is going to change in their relationship. However, I think what the parents are trying to impart to these two, but aren't saying outright, which when you're communicating with anyone, it is best just to say exactly what you mean. But especially when you're communicating with children and teenagers, you need to say exactly what you mean, which is you're about to go through a lot of changes in your life that you don't have a say-so in going through. You have to transition into the job market. You have to transition into finding your own housing. These are things you don't get a say in, and you're going to have to do them. And adding the things that come with marriage on top of that is going to add another layer of responsibility. Not necessarily stress, but responsibility. And sometimes responsibility can add stress. Having a dog is great and is shown to reduce stress for a lot of people, having a pet in general. But when you're having a really, really, really rough week and your schedule is jam-packed and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to water the plant or feed the dog or feed the cat or clean the fish's tank, that doesn't feel calming. That doesn't feel grounding. That feels more stressful. And I think that's what the parents are trying to say here is like having a person that you have to think about before you think about yourself when you're about to go through all these stressful changes is potentially going to make things not better for the two of you. And we're not saying don't get married. We're just saying maybe wait until some of those have passed. We get the feeling that Victor is very much looking through teenage rose-colored glasses, and that both he and Sarah have a feeling that, and it's the feeling that everyone has when they're like 17 to 22 years old, that you know exactly how everything is going to go for the next several years. You have a plan, and that plan is exactly how things are going to go. Nothing can shake that plan. And as long as you stick to that plan, everything's going to turn out okay. Rachel and I have been together in parts of this plan when we were younger.
Mhm.
And I think if we talked about those times that we'd planned things together back in the day, we'd be like, oh my God, those poor dumb babies. They did not know things. Because we couldn't know things. You can't know what you don't know. And Victor and Sarah cannot know what they don't know, but they're optimistic in a way that makes you worry. In an interview, Victor's dad tells us that he and Victor's mom are really at a loss for what to do. Victor isn't listening to either of them, and they're trying to tell him that they're worried, but he just won't listen. Back in the family conversation, Victor tries to reassure his parents that he knows exactly what he's getting himself into, because of course you do. You're a teenager, and that everything's going to be just fine. Everything's going to turn out great, and that they won't be having kids anytime soon. And as soon as he says this, you can almost watch his dad's eyes like bug out from his skull. At the very mention of kids, Victor's dad just loses it a bit, and he tells Victor that they better not have kids anytime soon because they're way too young for any of this, let alone kids. In an interview again, Victor's dad says that he suspects that Victor and Sarah really do love each other. They don't know what to expect 3 to 4 years down the line. No one can. And so having to watch them make this choice is difficult. Victor says that the two of them, Victor and Sarah, have been together since they were 15, and that they really know what they're talking about, and that they really love each other, and that they just want to be together. They know what they're doing. And so he closes off the conversation with his parents by telling them to trust him because he knows what he's getting himself into. And I just wanted to know, Rachel, if you're a parent and you have a teen who is talking about stuff like this, what do you do? How do you do the thing we talked about earlier, where if you see a friend making a choice that you're like, oh, this isn't good for you, you just say like, oh, I'll be here if you need anything? Or what do you do?
I mean, I would hope that in the future, if I'm ever a parent, that if my child were to come to me with this, I would hope that I would feel confident that I have raised them enough and with enough self-advocacy and to know themselves and how to make good decisions, that I would say, I probably wouldn't have made the same decision, but I will stand by you. And if things go sideways, I am here to help pick you up. But I really hope that's not the case.
It's now only 4 weeks to the wedding, and Sarah tells us that she's found her dream dress and that they've booked the reception hall, but now she has to pick out the Moroccan wedding dress that her mom wants her to wear. And her tone when she's telling us this tells us that she's dreading going to this dress shop with her mom quite a bit. Sarah tells us that while she's excited to see what the dresses look like and to go shopping, she just knows that there's going to be conflict with her mom while picking out the dresses. And I feel like so many people across all backgrounds know this feeling.
It's also in general like a high stress environment. Like, it's
wedding
stressful
planning is very
to plan a
stressful.
wedding.
Even if you are planning something, an event that ends up going off all without a hitch, it's super low key, it's still stressful to do.
I have had friends who, at their weddings, they go, if anything happens, I don't want to know about it. Don't tell me. Figure it out. If something goes completely awry, there's a wedding planner. But do not let me know about it because I don't want to deal with that. I wonder how much of this too was production and production saying, let's incorporate the culture. Let's incorporate more of
and
the
culture. And how much
culture.
were they amping up mom, hyping her up before they rolled the cameras? That's the thing about this show. There are moments where it's really easy to pick out what production was doing, and then there are going to be moments where it could have been a complete production setup, and we're not going to know because we don't have the background information on this show that we have on things like Dance Moms or if we ever covered Keeping Up with the Kardashians or Laguna Beach. We don't have that intel. When Sarah finally arrives to the dress shop, Raja has already pulled 3 dresses ready to go for Sarah to put on, and she's done this without any input from Sarah. And again, those of us who know this feeling, we know what that specific moment would feel like, walking in and being like, great, I didn't even get to have an input in my wedding dress. Okay.
But also in Moroccan culture, there are specific
Yes.
dresses with specific colors for each stage
Yes.
of the wedding. So it's not likely that her mom even chose them. Her mom may have just said, we want this type of dress, this type of dress, and this type of dress for these different events.
And
And
that
that's what they
very well
brought.
could have been the case. Like, Sarah's mom may have gone in there with the, like, okay, these are what we need. Let's start with these. And it could have been completely innocent on Raja's part. But I'm talking about how Sarah feels and that feeling of, like, okay, today's going to be rough. I know it is. And then you go in and it's already, like, you're like, oh,
The lack
yeah,
of
it's already
autonomy.
started. Like, there is no way out here. Pulled the colors that Raja's mom, or not Raja's mom, Sarah's mom requested. If Sarah goes in and says, like, oh, I don't really vibe with any of these, that could be the start for something. And it's the wedding dress.
Mhm.
And again, if Sarah is as westernized as she is, we're not, no one who's getting married in North America going to a wedding dress shop to pick out a white wedding dress, none of us are really anticipating that we're going to be told what to wear. We're usually, and she just went to her own wedding dress shop to pick out her white wedding dress. She's more in the mindset that she should get to pick out what goes on her body on her wedding day. And so this is going to feel so invasive to her. Not that it's meant to be, or not even that that's what's happening, but that's what it's going to feel like. Pair that with this conflict that she's having with her mom, and it's going to feel like an insurmountable kind of day. And so Sarah kind of takes this in and she asks her mom, how many dresses are you expecting that I wear? How many Moroccan dresses are you expecting? And her mom says, at least 3. And the way that Raja says at least 3, it's got that, mom tinge to it that, when you ask how big in trouble you are in when you're young, like, how long am I grounded for? And they're like, at least 2 weeks. And you're like, you kind of balk at it and you're like, what? And they're like, do you want to double it? She's kind of got that, like, tinge to her voice where she's like, it could be more. And again, we want to remember that,
like, I'm still your mom, you're still my
Raja,
child.
This must feel like she is giving up so much in the way of culture and her heritage and what she wanted for her daughter and her daughter's wedding. So to her, I'm sure at least 3, like, it's probably, to her, it feels like only 3 dresses. But to Sarah, 3 dresses for a couple of hours, a party? Like, the two of them are 2 sides of a coin. They're inextricably linked, but they cannot see each other, and they cannot meet eye to eye. In an interview, Raja tells us that Sarah is her child, and that means that Sarah's gonna have to do what she wants. And I'm here to tell you that Raja is an icon. She may be problematic, she may not be, but however you feel about her, you have to admit she has some killer one-liners, and she's a bit of an icon. Sarah and Raja do end up getting into an argument over the dresses. Sarah says sorry we keep saying Sarah. We do know the difference. We just, a choice that we're making, and when we are making the choice, we're trying to say it correctly. I just didn't want anyone to think we're trying to be disrespectful, because we're not. Sarah and Raja end up getting into an argument over the dresses because Sarah says she just feels like it's all too much, and she does try and set a boundary, saying that, like, look, I'll wear some of the dresses, but not everything. I can't do everything. And that it's getting to be too overwhelming for her. And Raja responds that she thinks that because Sarah is her daughter, that means she has to do what Raja wants and what she says. And Sarah asks when they're going to get to do what she wants and what she says, because it is her wedding. And Raja, being the icon that she is like, we're always doing what she wants. Which, again, to her, when you think about how long and how elaborate a Moroccan wedding typically is, this must feel like the case to her. It feels like this is the truth to Raja. This is Raja's reality. But we can also definitely see where Sarah is coming from. Eventually, Sarah Sarah's just like, I've had enough. I'm only going to wear 2 of the dresses. She thanks her mom. She says she appreciates all that she's doing and that she's buying the dresses for her, but she's done. And then she tells us in an interview that she put her foot down with her mom and she told her she's only going to wear the dresses that she wants to wear. And she just seemed pretty proud of herself.
I mean, and honestly, like, this kind of goes to show the positive relationship that she and her mom have, because I don't know that any other level of relationship, like, she probably would have, stormed out or cried or
Yes.
swore at her or, whatever it may be.
I did want to ask Rachel, when Sarah and Raja are talking about, like, when are we ever going to do what I want to do? Or it feels kind of like both Sarah and Raja are living their own truth while simultaneously feeling like the other person is lying to them. How can 2 people, especially family members, how can you navigate that?
I mean, typically, when I see that kind of thing, I try to remind people that they're ultimately on the same team. Like, they have the same goal in mind, and to approach it from that perspective, like,
Us versus the problem. Okay.
yeah, like, in a sense, the mom, while she feels like she's being flexible, she's not necessarily. And I think being able to take ownership of some of it and being willing to, like, step back. But again, I think this is a case of culture. So I think in this particular case, it's more a matter of heritage and not generalized just conflict. And
So we jump ahead quite a bit in the story, and it's now only 2 days to the wedding, where we join Victor as he gets ready for his bachelor party, where he is being taken by a group of his friends to play paintball. And he tells us that he didn't want to be taken to a strip club or to the bar. The drinking age in parts of Canada, and I think particularly in Quebec where they are for this episode, is 18. He didn't want to be taken to those places for his big night. He didn't want anything that would feel like he was marking the end of his single life. Nope. He wanted to do something that would feel like he was celebrating the beginning of the rest of his life with Sarah. So what's better for that than good old paintball?
which, I mean, I hear him say that, and I'm like, that is such a mature way to look at
The
it. The
framing of it is, but then the choice of paintball is so 12-year-old boy. Every time I watch this episode, I laugh so hard at this point. At this part, it's so funny to me.
I mean, it's boys.
It's boys.
Like, they can have these like amazing adult revelations, and then on the flip side, be like, "Don't touch my Pokemon card,"
and then go right back to playing whatever game it was that they were playing. Their silly little game. Oh, boys. We also get to join Sarah along for her bachelorette party, where her friends have taken her out for a surprise pole dancing class, which was a very, very big thing to do for cardio back in the late 2000s, early aughts. And the show frames this class as something funny, which is another thing that was very big to do back in the late 2000s and early aughts, was to make jokes out of anything that was sex work adjacent. Sex work is work. It really did be doing stuff, and people did be doing things, and we were not making good choices.
I think the contrast between the boys' party and the girls' party is so interesting.
And that's what I'm saying is, like, one of them is giving what you would expect of an 18-year-old's bachelorette party in a part of the world where 18-year-olds are viewed more as adults. The other one is giving the bachelor or bachelorette party equivalent of something you would expect to see of an 18-year-old in the other parts of North America, where that's not the case. His bachelor party feels something more to me like what we would see for a teen wedding down here in the States. And seeing the dichotomy really just gives me the giggles. I will say at Sarah's party, it does seem like the girls are having fun, but I also really want to point out that production filming a bunch of teen girls doing pole dancing and learning to do it and then distributing it on national TV and the internet is gross.
I also think it's so funny how the instructor attempted to make a sexual joke, but there was such naivety.
No, they did not get it.
It reminded you just how young they are.
Back at the bachelor party, Victor is having a conversation with his older brother, Andreas, who wants to know why he insists on getting married this young. And Victor says it's because he loves his woman. And Andreas says, like, look, man, I love my girlfriend too, but that doesn't mean I'm trying to get married right now. And Victor tells him that if they do it now, they won't have to worry about it later because it will already be done and out of the way. And again, let me just say that if you are looking at marriage as something to get done now, just so you don't have to worry about doing it later, you're not in a position to be getting married. Please don't do it. Please, 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 please wait. We then get some cuts back and forth between the two parties. The girls are playing around at the end of the class and telling us that they saw a whole new side to Sarah and that they really think she found her inner sexy self, which is great, but maybe don't film it and put it on TV. Embracing your sexuality is super important, and being educated on your body and being familiar with it before you share it with someone else is vastly imperative. But making young women who are clearly naive about it and not well versed in it and clearly not necessarily super comfortable with it themselves talk about it to a camera is awkward and gross. And this whole thing to me was just giving filming Mackenzie in the bathroom on Dance Moms for the drama vibes. And we get a shot of the boys playing paintball, which feels like the producers were trying to shoot this like a sports film, and go off, sis, I guess. When the boys finish their round of boom, bang, shoot things at each other, they start talking between themselves about the thing that's happening at Sarah's party. And this is a moment where we can tell production had their hand in it, because the thing that's happening at Sarah's party is a stripper. Whether or not production got the stripper there, or production just got the information that the stripper was there and is now disseminating it to the members of the bachelor party for the tea and the drama, this has production of reality TV written all over it. You can't miss it.
I feel like that can be a very typical thing, though, especially if your friend
Yes.
group, like if it's all your friends, then somebody's messaging, the bridesmaids messaging the groomsmen and they're saying, hey, guess what we're doing? And
Again, I'm not sure that that production sent the stripper. I feel like they might have, because again, these girls are pretty naive. They thought taking the class was like super risque. And then, but like that, making sure that Victor got the multiple pictures into his hands and video into his hands, and then do the way they do the close up of him like reading the text and asking him questions to get his response. That's where you know that this was production. Not that production necessarily set the whole thing up, but that production was using it for drama. They make a big deal of making sure that Victor sees pics and video of the performance on someone's phone, and they don't quite get the response I think they were going for, because he's not mad, but he does seem uncomfortable with the whole thing. And I think, to me, it feels like he's uncomfortable with being asked questions about it on camera. After the performance by the dancer, Sarah tells us that the fun still isn't over at her party yet, because her friends have gotten her a sexy boudoir photo shoot, which Sarah does, and she says she really enjoys.
I think to have your friends do it is maybe a little different.
Yep.
But I have had friends who have done boudoir shoots and did it as a wedding gift to their spouse.
I love boudoir photography. We have some studios in our area here that I think are super cool. I love the idea. And I think it can even be a fun thing to get for your friend. But if you're going to do that, you need to give it to them as a gift card and then let them decide when and if they go to do it.
Yeah, or have a conversation with them, because they might not even want to do it.
Now, I'm not judging these girls because A, they're too young to have their frontal lobes developed. They can't make, it's hard for them to make those kind of decisions. And B, we don't know that production wasn't like, and then take her to do this. We don't know. But I'm just saying, please don't spring this on anyone as a fun surprise. It's now the day before the wedding, and Victor tells us that he's a little freaked out, and he's wondering if they're going to be able to get everything done in time for the big day, which everyone anywhere who's ever gotten married says, bro, same. Victor and Sarah are going over the last minute details, making sure all their ducks in a row, when Victor tells us in an interview that he only thinks he's gotten the whole wedding wardrobe thing with Sarah's mom squared away. He tells us that Raja wanted him in traditional Moroccan dress for the wedding, but he recently talked with her, and now he doesn't think he has to do that, which feels like he might not have had the most direct conversation with Raja, which is very developmentally appropriate for where these two are in age. but not developmentally appropriate for someone who's about to get married and is wanting to be a law enforcement official in the very near future. I will say, I think I left it out of my notes, but there was a moment earlier in the show where we got to see Victor interact with Raja, and Raja was asking him about, like, you'll wear the thing at the wedding, right? And Victor kind of like put his hands up in the air and was like, yep, we'll do it. It's fine. So to find out that he still only now ironed it out, he's gone back and said, like, no, I'm not going to do that. It is very interesting because we did see his dynamic with Raja, and his dynamic with Raja is to just give in to whatever she says, say, yes, ma'am, yes, mom. It's giving very much like little boy just trying to say whatever the parent wants to get out from potentially being in any trouble, which again makes sense developmentally for their age, but not for what they're about to head into in life. Sarah then shows Victor a preview that she was sent from the photo shoot that she did the night before, the boudoir shoot. And Victor asks if he can have the photo to take with him since they're going to be spending the night apart. Sarah says that he can have it once they're married. And while this scene adds some levity to the episode, it's a little like, it kind of makes you chuckle once you remember that they're two 18-year-old kids and they are talking about some scantily clad photos of Sarah, and they're having this conversation in their bedroom, in their bed, and there was a whole camera crew there with them filming this. Feels a little uncanny valley yucky. Victor leaves to go stay with his parents for the night because, it's about luck to see the bride for the wedding. After he heads out, Sarah tells us that she has compromised with her mom and that she thinks she's made some really great allowances as far as agreeing to a lot of Moroccan stuff at her wedding to make her mom happy. And then we get Raja telling us in a very different sort of interview that the Moroccan part of the wedding still feels way too short for her. And she also tells us that she might just do what she wants anyway. So, look out, folks. There may be drama ahead. It is now the day of the wedding, and we start off with Victor at his parents' house. They're buzzing around, getting ready, and as they're getting ready to leave, his mom says, "Are you ready for this? Because I don't think I am." And she says this in a very funny way, and it always makes me laugh.
In a very mom way.
Victor tells us in an interview that today he's marrying the woman in his life. And great job with the words, buddy. We then join Sarah, as she's getting ready to head to the venue, and she tells us that she gets to marry Victor today, who is her lover and her best friend. And while Sarah's words may seem a bit deeper and more thought out than what Victor just said, they do both seem to be filled with emotion. I will give you that. We get a few shots of the wedding ceremony, which does appear to have been performed in French. It's not surprising given where they are, but it is still interesting and really cool to watch. And then we head into what definitely feels like the main event that we've all been waiting for, the reception. Sarah tells us that she is a little nervous for the Moroccan portion of the wedding, and that while she had recently told her mom she was only going to be changing into 2 of the Moroccan dresses at the wedding reception, she is now going to be wearing all 3 of the Moroccan gowns that her mother chose for her because she just wants her mom to be happy.
I think the fact that she made the choice is far different than I'm doing it because my mom wants it to. Like, my mom was willing to settle for 2, and she was going to be okay with 2. And the framing of it as doing it to make her mom happy is probably not the most mature view.
Sarah is then carried into the reception in the traditional Moroccan wedding seat. It's a platform called an amaria. It's roofed and it's carried by 4 to 6 men on their shoulders. And Sarah tells us that she's terrified of heights. She's never even seen one of these things before, let alone rode in one of them. So she really doesn't want to be doing this. And if you do watch this episode, which again, I highly recommend, it probably, if you're not someone who is afraid of heights or freaked out by this kind of stuff, it doesn't look that high. But if you've ever done cheerleading or stunting of any kind, I guarantee you'll know the feeling that Sarah must have been having. It feels very high up when you're up on someone's shoulders, and it's shaky. It makes it feel a lot crazier than it really is. And for her never to have seen it before, and for her mom to have wanted this to be a part of the wedding, it's very understandable. It's a big part of their culture. But especially for someone who's afraid of heights, this is something that it would have been really important and imperative to have had her see multiple times. Not even necessarily in person, but if you had a video of your wedding or someone else's wedding where this is a thing, having them watch it. So it's like, oh, I get to do this really cool thing. Raja tells us that she got her Moroccan part of the wedding, so she's happy. And we do find out that Victor was supposed to wear his traditional Moroccan wedding outfit for at least 15 minutes, but he just decided not to do it.
I think that he was literally just a teenage boy and was like, whatever. I think he was literally just being a teenage boy.
When they asked Raj in an interview how she feels about Victor not wearing his Moroccan outfit, she says she can't force him, she can't make him do it. But we do get the feeling that she might have taken that route if she could have. Sarah heads into the bridal room for another dress change, and she is talking with one of her bridesmaids about how she's starting to feel like she's spending more time getting changed and having her makeup fixed than she is with her guests at her own wedding. She also talks with her bridesmaid about how she doesn't feel like the music is representative of her guests and of herself and of Victor at all. And she tells us in an interview that she didn't really grow up listening to Moroccan music, so this isn't the kind of music that she had grown up thinking was going to be playing at her wedding. And she tells her friends that the orchestra is just playing for way too long, and she wants to have her music on pronto. Sarah's friends try to console her, and they tell her that everything will be fine, and then they say the one line that they really shouldn't have said to a bride: "This is just for one night." She looks at them with a face that says, "Be so for real right now," and says, "Yeah, but this one night is my wedding night." I think this has got to be really hard for Sarah, and then that's going to make it really hard for Raja. Sarah finishes changing and heads back to the party, where she tells her mom that if this Moroccan orchestra plays one more song, she's gonna flip. She has had it. So Raja calls off the musicians, and Sarah's music goes ahead. And we end the episode with two opposing viewpoints. One of the happy couple, Sarah and Victor, who tells us that everything is great now, their music is on, everyone is having fun, and they say that they feel like this is the start of their lives together and that everything is going to just be wonderful from now on. A little bit more of that teenage optimism for you. While Raja, on the other hand, tells us that now she has no more daughter. She has no more little girl. Now she is a woman, and she's married, and there is no going back. As much as it would have been nice to hear from Victor's parents, I feel like Raja's statement does give us a good synopsis of how the parents are feeling. As the credits roll, we get some shots of people dancing at the reception. Sarah tossing the bouquet, Victor getting the garter. A very weird thing to film teenagers doing.
I mean, that's weird to see anybody doing, to be honest. It is a very weird, westernized tradition.
And then to film kids doing it, don't do that. Anyway, that is the end of season 1, episode 1 of My Teenage Wedding. Our hot button issues for this episode are healthy teen relationships. Those are not taught or talked enough about, especially not in education. So we definitely want to make sure that our listeners have resources that they can access if they so choose to about that. And cultural differences, because the way that we view parenting when it comes to parents of other cultures is very important. What's your takeaway from this episode, Rachel?
Parents, it's not about you.
My takeaway is, if you're going to tease us with the tea, spill it or keep it in the pot. As always, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming back and hanging out. I have been Kacie, not Rachel.
And I've been Rachel, not Kacie.
And this has been CBT in the TV, and we will see you all next time. Bye!
CBT in the TV is hosted by Rachel Sprague and Kacie Campbell. Our show is produced by Rachel Sprague, Kacie Campbell, and Yakov Paley. Editing by Yakov Paley. Our theme song was written, composed, and performed by Emily McNally. Please join us on Instagram and TikTok at CBT in the TV for even more fun and access to the resources mentioned in today's episode. Thanks for joining us.